Hi and welcome to the all-new Riders Lounge podcast. I'm Steve Sommerfeld and I'll be your host for this new podcast series where I'll take you behind the scenes in freestyle motocross and interview the biggest names in the sport to find out what makes them tick and what it takes to risk life and limb and throw out the biggest tricks in the game or simply to go and huck some gnarly dirt jumps for fun or an Instagram video. The Riders Lounge podcast will also catch up with the future of freestyle motocross with the new next generation Groms, see what they've got up their sleeve, also occasionally hearing from the industry heavyweights or whoever I stumble across in other action sports and some big name guys during my travels. I'll also be doing small wrap-ups of the big FMX events from around the world, whether I was there in person like every round of Night of the Jumps World Tour Championships or simply an event overseas on YouTube like most of you should be watching anyway, and I'll try and give a bit of background information from the riders who were there. It's almost like bringing the days of waiting for your monthly magazine to flick through into an easy to listen to, I hope, podcast while you're driving to work, sitting on the couch bored and scrolling through Instagram, or maybe you're sitting in the machine building some new jumps, or if you don't have a machine, with a shovel, whatever. So what can you expect from the Riders Lounge podcast? Well, since I'm a washed up FMX rider myself, after crashing my brains out in a show in 2017 after missing a seat grab on a damn backflip, I'm still luckily involved in the sport and I'm still able to travel the world, meeting all the same riders I was hanging out with before, whether I was riding with them or just at the events. And the idea is to catch these guys while they're just chilled out between shows or training at home, or whether they're just sitting down and having a beer after the show, which is the main aim of this podcast, because who doesn't want to hear riders spilling the beans after a couple of beers? A new Riders Lounge podcast will be available at a minimum of one per fortnight, and I'll try and keep them on Tuesdays starting from March 17th. So next Tuesday, tune in. And this is mainly because I hate working on Mondays. I can't wait to release the first interview for you all. It's with the Unicorn, the only man to ever land a triple backflip, an X Games gold medalist and Red Bull X Fighters World Tour champion, all-round nice guy and a good mate of mine, Josh Sheehan.
The most stressful day of my life, but the most memorable. The build up to it, just trying to convince myself, tell myself, think that it's just like every other day. It's just going out there, doing the first one, go through the same procedures, warm up, and come in off the lip. Felt it was a good pop. My feet slid back, locked into the aggressive grip tape that I had. So like, yep, in the right position, feel good. And the first two spin around pretty quick, and that's after the second one, I'm at the peak of the rotation. So then I've got the fall to get the third rotation done, and yes, that's going really good, and enough time to extend out and relax a bit before the landing. And the moment I touched down, I drifted across. I nearly went into the wall, but the weight off my shoulders that day was amazing. It was just cannot compare it to anything. It was that whole day was spent in disbelief after that. It was just. I've never had that much stress, never been through that much stress, full stop. But then to have it all like a clean slate after that, it's not like I'm relieved. There's massive feel of relief and adrenaline rush and just this high feeling. But you stay in it. I'm there all day. It was unexplainable. It was amazing.
The next interview after Sheenies will be with Antonio Navas, who's half of the Spanish Tandem FMX team and kind of like the president of the Yates FMX team.
Okay, but pin it. Don't come up short.
Is there any point where you get like a bailout motion, like from Rocky maybe says, I don't feel it, don't go?
Yeah, maybe a couple times happened that in the in-run, right before the ramp, was like doing kind of movement with his hand, like pin it, like more. I was like, what the fuck, move up, and already do the ramp. So it felt weird. Or sometimes especially for the backflip, I would say it's probably the most difficult trick for the tandem, because we're doing the long distance backflip and I have to pull so hard, and because Rocky's on the back, there's just a couple seconds that I lose the front wheel, because I'm pulling hard backwards and Rocky's also on the back. And the front wheel is losing, and I have to make sure I'm really, really straight, and also Rocky is straight. So sometimes we go sideways because Rocky's maybe pulling like a little sideways. But yeah, that's probably the hardest one.
The third interview to be released will be with Marc Pignol, also from Spain, and he spilled the beans on inventing new tricks just before the second night of the Jumps in Berlin, where I had the chance to interview him. Then you had the inside roll. Tell us how you got to that point, because it looks really strange that you're doing kind of a front flip seat grab.
It's like a special flip, but to the front, I would put it that way. And actually, it was just a dream at the beginning. It's like, hey, we were in the compound, and it would be so cool to do a front flip on the bike, but just you. And we just set it up, and we try it. So I remember to be in the compound, and Navas and some other friends was catching me on the stand, making me flip around. And okay, I think I can do it like this. The first idea was to grab and front flip and go directly to the bars like a kind of holy man, but was not working at all. I flew on foam pit a lot of times, and I was so lucky that I never landed on the bike at that point.
Another interview I can't wait to release. It's pretty funny. It's with England's best FMX rider, someone who actually probably prefers to spend more time pushing dirt around in the deep dark woods of Devon in his digger with his pet Pomeranian Molly on his lap while digging jumps, Jamie Squibb. We managed to do his interview at 2 a.m. after the autograph signing at Night of the Jumps in Berlin, and before he had to catch a 4:30 in the morning shuttle to the airport. So we had a few beers, and yeah, you can imagine how that interview went.
Like, I could never be involved in the takedown of an event.
Yeah. No.
It would break my heart.
Yeah.
It would be like, it'd be like ripping down all my dirt jumps at home. I'd be fucking bawling my eyes out.
Yeah.
If someone said you got to get in the digger and rip these dirt jumps down and reinstate the land to normal, I'd be hysterical. Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Well, I completely agree with you, mate. Let's call time of death on this one.
Yeah,
and,
part one of probably 5.
Yep.
Let's go bar and get fucking beer before my taxi takes me to the airport.
So with the first interviews being released over the next few fortnights, we'll come to the Munich Night of the Jumps event on April 25, and I'll have the chance to grab another 3 or 4 riders and get their thoughts on freestyle motocross. So if one of your favourite riders is in Munich on April 25, make sure to send some emails or messages through with your best questions, and I'll take the best ones with me and see what the riders have to say. Because as the fans, you've probably got better interview questions than I'll have anyway, so what do you want to find out? If this sounds like a podcast you want to listen to, and why wouldn't you, hit the subscribe button in whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. Also, jump on our Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube channels. It's simply Riders Lounge Podcast, and get ready for the first big episode with the big man, Josh Sheehan, on Tuesday, March the 17th. For this podcast, I'd really like to thank Katarina from Thomann, which is based in Germany, for hooking me up with a nice discount on all this recording equipment I needed to make this podcast. I actually went to the factory, which turns out to only be 1 hour from where I'm living here in Germany, and only 5 minutes from one of the regular tracks I ride at in Mühlhausen, with another old, retired and washed up FMX rider like me, Fabian Bauersachs. And actually, Thomann, it's huge. It looks like an Amazon warehouse for anything about sound, audio, music, and now I know where it is. I can't wait to get back there and have a bash on their drum kits. And speaking of drum kits, I want to also thank fellow drummer, Nitro World Games 2019 winner, Pat Bowden from PB Creative, who has created this awesome new Riders Lounge podcast logo. I didn't pass grade 1 finger painting in art, and that's why Pat was all over this with his design, and he came up with a beauty. I didn't give him any ideas. I just said, come up with something. Let me know what you think. I think it's awesome. And I also really want to thank the 2007 X Games FMX gold medalist and FMX legend Adam Jones, who's going to put together some chunky guitar riffs that will go over all of the podcast episodes into the future. He's killing it in freestyle. He's got so much damn style, and I'm so stoked that he can take the time out to send some decent music, and I don't have to worry about any licenses whatsoever. I also want to give a shout out to my personal sponsors because without them, I would never have got to this point in freestyle motocross or even able to do this podcast. So a huge thanks has to go to a good friend of mine, Jason at Lakes Networking in Australia. Everyone has a laptop, a phone, or a computer, and if you need them all to work perfect together in sync, or build a website, or just get new equipment, then Jason will look after you. I haven't discussed any of this with him. Give him a call and tell him Steve Sommerfeld sent you, and I'm sure he'll give you the best price possible on everything. Also, I want to thank Custom MX and MotorX through the A1 Accessories in Australia, who have kept my bike looking mint for over 10 years, with the best oils keeping my KTM 250 two-smoker singing like a bird, all running as well as my fairly lax maintenance schedule allows. I also want to thank Brad at GB Orthopedics in Brisbane. He's hooked me up with so many sets of carbon fiber knee braces until we just realized the carbon wasn't really working. It couldn't handle the bending stresses. So we've changed over to the Bledsoe knee braces, which is a really nice and lightweight alloy. And Brad will fit you up perfectly because actually his real job is full-on orthopedics inside Brisbane hospitals and inside surgery. So Brad knows exactly what to do, and he's happy to look after our motocross family. I want to thank TCX Boots, which was a new sponsor in the year I had my big career-ending crash, and I can't be happier with Scotty for bringing me on the team and also supporting me for the last 2.5 years off the bike. Well, actually, I have been on the bike a little bit, but just motocross and getting around. I was also so stoked to pick up DEP pipes. They're made in England, but actually I remember a good mate of mine in Australia, Adam Bayard, picked up a DEP system for his YZ250, and it was so damn crisp so long ago, and I always wanted it, and everybody said they're the best for two-strokes. Now that I have it, I completely agree. They are so damn good and I couldn't be happier. They're of course freaking good on 4-strokes as well, but for me as a 2-stroke dinosaur, they are perfect. If you're based in Europe or more locally in Germany, Stefan from MX Hoch Dry, or MX High 3 I guess it is in German, has sorted my suspension since the day I got to Germany when Hannes Ackermann took me over there and got it all set up. I also want to thank the guys at Race FX from England. It's a little bit different because I picked up this sponsorship the day I had my crash because I completely destroyed everything. And so Nez went up to the guys at Motorcycle Live in Birmingham in England in 2017 and said, Steve just destroyed everything. He needs a whole bunch of parts. We've got a tour in 6 weeks and he needs to be ready to go. And the guys from Race FX made it happen. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get back on. And I want to give a shout out to a good friend of mine and freestyle motocross photographer, Joel Heidrich, who actually came up with the idea of this whole podcast in the first place. A couple of years ago, he put the idea to me and I said, no way, that's a silly idea. People just want to look at freestyle on Instagram or YouTube or just going to the event. And then a few months ago, he asked me again about a podcast and I still said, no, not going to happen. And then I looked into it and I thought, actually, that's probably a good idea. So we're up and running. And this is the challenge now to Joel. You got me up and running and I know you've got a bunch of harebrained schemes. So I want to see you get out there and get that clothing brand up and running at least. And the challenge has now been set. If you're still listening to this, you deserve a pumpkin sticker or higher. I won't carry on too much more other than to say thank you for listening, and I hope you find this new Riders Lounge podcast remotely enjoyable, educational, or inspiring, or just a good way to drift off to sleep at night. Either way, remember to subscribe now on whatever podcast player you're listening to, and every fortnight on a Tuesday, a new episode will be there waiting for you, starting next week, next Tuesday, March 17th, with Sheeny. See you then.